Okay, in the remainder of the show, I want to explain and demonstrate some of the exercises I talked about on the podcast earlier. And I also want to elaborate a little bit more on the topic of stretching. I have with me today a woman I used to work with, Juliana. You can wave to the camera, Juliana. And she's a great model. I've worked with her for a long time when we worked at the Metro West Wellness Center back in the late 90s, early 2000s. But anyway, I just want to elaborate a little bit about what we talked about when we had Juliana earlier on the podcast, lying down on her stomach like we are. We're trying to, again, stretch the front of the muscles of the thigh and the hip area here. So when we bring this leg up to 90 degrees, if there's no motion at the hip, that's good, because you don't want to have any pelvic motion when we're trying to stretch. Now again, if she comes up and she starts lifting her pelvis like that, then that's a sign of a couple of things, and we're going to go over that. I didn't really go over that in the podcast. So when she comes up and she starts lifting her hips now, could be that the hip flexor muscles are tight and that her abdominal muscles are not actually working the way they should in this position. Now we can do crunches, we can do all these sit-ups, all those things are not going to help in this position because this is more of a static hold. She needs to be able to hold her posture. The muscles of the hip, do that again. When you lift up, Juliana, the hips come up. Hers, they don't, because she's got very good flexibility. But in a lot of people that I work with, the hips come up, and so what happens is that these hip flexors are so tight, they fight. They have a tug-of-war with the abdominals. So the abdominals are kind of like in a bad position. They can't fight against that hip flexor tightness. So the hip flexor wins out. So what we want to do is we want to, again, we don't want to have the hips come up because that's a problem with core stability. And why does this matter? Why do we have her in this position? Number one is the best way to actually increase her flexibility in this position is just to have her lift her leg on her own and bring it as far as she can while her abdominals can hold her. So if, for instance, if it was a person that didn't have her flexibility, then they would come up like this, and if it starts to lift up, we won't want to go that far. We would only want to go as far as her abdominals can control. And that would be an exercise in itself. Now I'm going to have my camera person pan up on me because I'm going to stand up. You see me? Okay. A lot of times you see people kind of doing this, and it really, you're stretching, yes, but you're really not involving the core, and you're holding on. And what would happen if you let go of that? I want to have, I believe in active stretching. So why are we saying all this? Is because, let's put it into real action. I'm going to stand up again. If a person is a runner and they're trying to improve speed, and if they take a stride, or if they'll go this way so the camera can see, this muscle, the hip flexor, if it's tight, it's going to actually pull the hips down, and you're going to get more extension from your lumbar spine and not from your hip. And every time you do that, you're putting excessive load on the spine, pressure. And that can, down the road, lead to injury. So again, if this muscle's tight, it pulls the pelvis down. If the abdominals are strong, they'll pull it up, and they'll keep it in a good position. So it's very important to have flexibility in a functional way without having someone actually move your limb like this. Sometimes people will do this and push the hips down and try to get range of motion that way. But I want the person's abdominals to do the job. Another way you can break somebody out of that pattern of hip flexor dominance, we call it, which is, again, just review that like that, is we'll do the chop and lift in a half kneeling position, which integrates the core, the muscles of the abdominals, and the muscles of all the muscles around this whole core set here, and at the same time stretch the hip flexor, because a lot of times the hip flexor is dominant and the core is not doing its job. So it's all about timing. So I just want to actually show you that now. We're going to show you a chop and lift pattern. Okay, we have the camera set on this line. in through here. I like it only because it actually, we can sort of quantify where she is in terms of her foot in relation to her opposite knee. So this is really going to actually increase the demands of core stability, because you're going to